The night my brother came back into my life, he wasn't standing proudly at my front door like family. He was on his knees in my driveway, soaked by rain, shaking, and begging me for help. 3 years earlier, when I was the one crying, broke, terrified, and desperate, that same man had looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You're on your own." I never forgot those words, but I never imagined they would come back to haunt him. My name is Emily Carter, and for most of my life, I believed my older brother Daniel was the one person I could always count on. Boy, was I wrong. Daniel was 4 years older than me, confident, charming, and always treated like the golden child. Dad bragged about him at every family barbecue. Mom defended him even when he was obviously in the wrong. I was different. Quiet, hardworking. The kind of person who would rather solve a problem herself than bother somebody else. After our parents passed away, Daniel and I were all we had left. At least, that's what I thought. Our parents left behind a modest family house, some savings, and a small piece of land outside town. It wasn't some huge fortune, but it was enough to give both of us a fresh start.
Daniel wanted to sell everything immediately. I didn't. That house still felt like Mom and Dad. Her coffee mug was in the kitchen cabinet. Dad's old toolbox was sitting in the garage, exactly where he had left it. I told Daniel, "Just give me 6 months. We don't have to rush this." He rolled his eyes. "You always make everything emotional, Emily." I ignored him. I thought we could work things out. I thought blood meant something. Then one afternoon, Daniel showed up with paperwork. He had already found a buyer for our parents' land. I stared at him. "You didn't even talk to me." He shrugged. "Because I knew you'd say no." That was the first crack in our relationship. But I still trusted him. And that trust was about to cost me far more than money. Because Daniel had already made a decision behind my back, and I had absolutely no idea how badly it was going to hurt. I should have walked away that day. Instead, I signed. Daniel kept telling me everything would be split fairly. He said he'd handle the paperwork, deal with the buyer, and make sure we both got our share. "Relax, Em. I've got this," he said. Those words should have been a warning. A few weeks later, I checked my bank account. The money I was expecting wasn't there. I called Daniel. No answer. I called again. Still nothing. Finally, he texted me. "Busy. What's up?" I stared at the screen before typing, "Where's my share of the money?" His response came almost immediately. "I'm handling it." I called him. This time, he picked up. "Daniel, what does handling it mean?" He sighed like I was annoying him. "It means I'm managing the money. Our money." "Yeah, Emily, our money." "Then why can't I access it?" There was a pause. Then he said, "Because you don't know how to manage money." My jaw dropped. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." I felt my blood boiling. "You had no right to move our parents' money without telling me." "Come on, don't start with the drama." "Drama? You took control of our inheritance." "I didn't take anything." "Then transfer my share." Silence. That silence told me everything. "Daniel?" He finally said, "You wouldn't know what to do with it anyway." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The brother I had defended my entire life was basically telling me I was too stupid to handle my own inheritance. I hung up. That night,
I sat alone in Mom's old kitchen and cried. Not because of the money, because something inside me finally understood that Daniel didn't see me as his equal.
He saw me as someone he could control, and I had spent years letting him. Still, I tried to move forward. I started a small home renovation business, using what little savings I had left. It wasn't glamorous, but I loved the work. I painted homes, managed contractors, redesigned kitchens, and helped people turn beat-up houses into beautiful ones. For the first time, I felt like I was building something that belonged completely to me. Then, everything crashed. I got seriously sick. Hospital bills started piling up. My business slowed down. Rent was due. Employees needed to be paid. And my savings were disappearing faster than I could replace them. One night, lying awake in that cold hospital room, I stared at my phone. There was only one person I wanted to call. Daniel. My pride screamed at me not to. My heart told me he was still my brother. So I called. He answered after several rings. Emily? My voice shook. Daniel, I need your help. There was silence. And somehow, even before he answered, I already knew I was about to hear something I would never forget. Help with what? Daniel asked. I swallowed hard. I'm still in the hospital. The bills are getting out of control, and my business is struggling. I don't need you to give me anything. I just need a loan. A loan? Yes. I'll pay you back. Every penny. He sighed. Emily, I'm not your ATM. I know that. Then why are you calling me? I closed my eyes. Because you're my brother. He laughed. Actually laughed. I pulled the phone away from my ear and stared at it. Daniel, I'm serious. So am I. You made your choices. Figure it out. My throat tightened. Please, I wouldn't ask if I had another option. You always have another option. What option do I have right now? That's not my problem. I felt tears sliding down my cheeks. You know I'm sick. I know. You know I could lose my business. You should have thought about that before starting it. That sentence broke something inside me. I whispered, Daniel. He interrupted me. You're on your own. Click. The call ended. I sat there in that hospital bed, staring at my phone. For several minutes, I couldn't move. Then, I deleted his number. I didn't block him. I didn't send an angry message. I didn't call anyone to complain. I simply decided that if Daniel could abandon me when I needed him most, I would stop expecting him to ever show up. But Daniel wasn't finished. A few days later, I discovered he had been telling relatives that I was irresponsible. According to him, I had wasted my money and expected everyone to rescue me. My aunt even called and asked why I was always making things harder than they needed to be. I almost laughed. Daniel knew exactly what was happening. He just wanted everyone to believe I was the problem. So I stopped explaining myself. I stopped defending myself. And I stopped begging. When I left the hospital, I sold my car. I moved into a tiny apartment. I worked from sunrise until midnight. Some nights,
dinner was instant noodles because every dollar mattered. It sucked. There were nights I sat on the floor of my empty apartment wondering if Daniel had been right about me. Maybe I really wasn't capable. Maybe I had messed everything up. But then I remembered his voice. "You're on your own." Something changed inside me. Fine, if I was on my own, I would learn how to survive on my own.
I took every job I could find. 1 client became 2. 2 became 10. 10 became referrals. Slowly, painfully, my business started growing. And while Daniel thought I was falling apart, I was quietly becoming someone he would one day wish he had never underestimated. 3 years later, I had no idea that Daniel was about to discover exactly how wrong he had been. 3 years can change a person. For me, those 3 years changed everything. My tiny renovation business became a real company. I hired employees, started taking commercial projects, and learned everything I could about property investment. I wasn't some millionaire living in a mansion, but I was comfortable. And more importantly, I was proud. Every dollar I earned reminded me of something I had survived. The hospital, the unpaid bills, the tiny apartment, the nights when I wondered whether I would make it through another week. I made it, and I did it without Daniel. Then I started buying rundown properties. I'd purchase them cheap, renovate them, and either rent them out or sell them. It was hard work, but I was good at it. Eventually, I bought a small office for my company, then a warehouse, then another property. My life finally felt stable. I had stopped thinking about Daniel. At least, I thought I had. Then one Thursday night, someone knocked on my front door. It was almost 11. I checked my security camera. My heart stopped. Daniel. I hadn't seen him in 3 years. He stood outside in the pouring rain, wearing a soaked jacket. His hair was messy, his face looked exhausted, and he kept looking toward the house like he was scared I might not answer. I opened the door but kept the chain locked. "What are you doing here?" He looked at me. His eyes were red. "Emily, please." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because life has one heck of a sense of humor. The man who once told me I was on my own was standing outside my house, asking me not to leave him alone. "What happened?" He looked down. "My business is gone." I stared at him. "What?" "I messed up." That's not exactly an explanation. He took a shaky breath. "My business partner stole from the company. For months. I didn't know." I said nothing. "He drained our accounts, forged documents, and left me with debts I can't pay." I crossed my arms. "So why are you here?" Daniel looked directly at me. "My house is being foreclosed." I felt nothing. 3 years ago, that news would have destroyed me. Now, it barely moved me. "Okay," I said. His face tightened. "Emily, I need help." There it was. The sentence I had once whispered from a hospital bed. I remembered asking him for a loan. I remembered promising to repay every dollar. I remembered him laughing. I remembered the words that had stayed inside my head for 3 years. "You're on your own."
I looked at him. What exactly do you want me to do? He hesitated. Then he handed me a folder. I found out yesterday that the property my company is operating from belongs to your company. I froze. I opened the folder. My stomach dropped. 3 months earlier, my company had purchased a commercial building at auction. I had never known Daniel's business was renting part of it. I looked up slowly. So let me get this straight. Daniel swallowed. My company owns your building? And your lease is ending? Yes. And if you lose that building, your business collapses completely? His eyes filled with tears. Yes. I closed the folder. For the first time in 3 years, Daniel needed something from me. Not emotionally, not someday. Right now. And suddenly, I realized I had a choice. I could give him exactly what he once gave me. Nothing. Or I could help him without forgetting what he had done. I looked him straight in the eyes. Come back tomorrow. His expression changed. Does that mean you'll help me? I shut the door. We'll see. And for the first time in my life, Daniel was the one left standing outside, wondering what would happen next. Daniel came back the next morning. This time, he wasn't standing in my driveway looking like a broken man. He was sitting across from me in my office, staring at the contract between us. I had already reviewed everything with my attorney. Daniel's business had been bleeding money for months. His partner had stolen from the company, taken out loans behind his back, and left Daniel responsible for debts he couldn't possibly cover. Now the commercial property was his last chance. Without it, his remaining contracts would disappear. His employees would quit. His business would fold. And his house? That was already headed toward foreclosure. Daniel looked at me. Emily, I'm not asking you to give me anything. I raised an eyebrow. Really? He nodded. I just need more time. I leaned back. You need more than time. He looked down. I know. 3 years ago when I needed help, you told me I was on my own. His face tightened. I know. You didn't ask what happened. You didn't ask how sick I was. You didn't care whether I lost everything. I cared. I stared at him. Then you had a funny way of showing it. He looked away. For once, Daniel didn't argue. That surprised me. I pushed the contract across the desk. I can give you 6 months. His head snapped up. 6 months? 6 months to stabilize your company. He grabbed the contract. What's the catch? Market rent, new agreement, no missed payments, no excuses. And you don't get to make any decisions about the property. He looked at me. You'd really do that? I'm not rescuing you, Daniel. He swallowed. I know. I'm giving you an opportunity. There's a difference. He nodded. Then he whispered, Thank you. I almost stopped him. Don't thank me yet. He looked confused. I leaned forward. I'm helping you because I choose to, not because you suddenly deserve it. His eyes dropped. The old Daniel would have argued. This Daniel didn't. He signed. For the next 6 months, something strange happened. Daniel worked, really worked. He sold unnecessary assets. He fired the employees involved in the fraud. He renegotiated contracts and started paying his debts. And every single month, he paid my company on time. No excuses, no drama, no late-night calls. Slowly, his business began recovering, but I still didn't trust him. One afternoon, my attorney called. "Emily, there's something you should know."
What? Daniel's been trying to repay part of the inheritance money. I froze. What inheritance money? The amount he controlled after your parents died. My stomach tightened. I thought that money was long gone. Apparently, it wasn't. Daniel had kept part of it for years. And suddenly, I understood something. He hadn't just abandoned me when I was sick. He had been sitting on money that belonged to both of us while I was selling my car to pay my bills. I felt angry all over again. That night, Daniel called. "Emily?" "What?" "I want to talk." "About what?" "The inheritance." My heart sank. He continued quietly. "I know I should have given you your share years ago." I stared out my window. "Why didn't you?" There was a long silence. Then he finally admitted it. "Because I thought you'd fail." I closed my eyes. Daniel's voice cracked. "And I wanted to be the one who succeeded." That confession hurt. That confession hurt more than I expected. Because finally, after all these years, I had the truth. He hadn't abandoned me because he couldn't help. He had abandoned me because he didn't want to. And now that he needed me, he finally understood exactly what he had thrown away. I whispered, "Bring the money tomorrow." He asked, "Why?" "Because we're going to settle everything." And this time, Daniel had no idea what I was about to do. Daniel arrived at my office the next morning, carrying a thick envelope. He placed it on my desk. "This is everything I owe you." I opened it. Inside were bank records, transfer documents, and a cashier's check. I looked at the amount. It wasn't life-changing, but it was proof. Proof that Daniel had known for years that he owed me. I looked up. "You kept this money while I was in the hospital?" His eyes dropped. "Yes." "While I was selling my car?" "Yes." "While I was eating noodles because I couldn't afford groceries?" He swallowed. "Yes." I pushed the envelope away. "Why?" He took a deep breath. "Because I was jealous." I stared at him. "Of what?" "Dad trusted you." I almost laughed. Dad trusted me because I showed up. Daniel's jaw tightened. "I know." "You weren't competing with me, Daniel. You were competing with yourself." He looked down. For once, he had nothing smart to say. I picked up the check. "You know what's funny?" He looked at me. "You thought I needed this money to survive." He said nothing. "I don't." I tore the check in half. Daniel's eyes widened. What are you doing? I don't want your money. Emily, you're entitled to it. I know. Then take it. No. He stared at me like I had lost my mind. I continued. I built my life without it. I'm not taking money from you just because you finally feel guilty. His eyes filled with tears. So, what do you want? I leaned forward. I want you to understand something. He nodded. 3 years ago, you had the chance to help me. You chose not to. I know. Today, I have the chance to destroy you. His face went pale. But I'm not going to. Daniel stared at me. Why? Because I don't want to become you. That hit him. He looked away, wiping his face. I continued. I'll keep the 6-month agreement. I'll give you the opportunity to rebuild your company. But after that, you stand on your own feet. He nodded slowly. Okay. And Daniel? He looked up. You don't get my trust back because you apologized. I understand. You earn it. He nodded again. That was it. No dramatic hug, no fake happy ending. Just 2 siblings sitting across from each other, finally facing the truth. Daniel left that afternoon, and for the first time, I felt lighter. Not because he was suffering, not because I had won, but because I had finally stopped carrying his betrayal around like it was my responsibility. 6 months later, Daniel's company survived. Barely, but it survived. His house was saved after he sold several investments. He paid every dollar he owed. And most importantly, he stopped blaming everyone else. One afternoon, he came to my office. I need to tell you something. I looked up from my laptop. What now? He smiled. I'm finally doing okay. I smiled back. Good. He sat down. I used to think you were the weak one. I raised an eyebrow. Used to? He laughed. Okay, fine. I was an idiot. That's more accurate. He laughed again. Then his expression became serious. I'm sorry, Emily. I nodded. I know. No, I mean it. I know. He looked down. I wish I could go back. I shook my head. You can't. I know. But you can do better now. He looked at me. Do you forgive me? I thought about the hospital, the phone call, the tears, the years of struggle. Then I looked at my brother. I forgive you. His eyes softened. But forgiveness doesn't mean you get the old version of me back. He nodded. I understand. And that was the truth. I could forgive Daniel without forgetting. I could love him without trusting him blindly. And I could help him without ever allowing him to control me again. But there was still one thing Daniel didn't know. The biggest lesson he had ever taught me wasn't about money. It was about power. And I finally understood where mine came from. A year after Daniel showed up at my door begging for help, we were sitting together at a little diner near my office. It was strange. Not uncomfortable. Just different. We weren't the same siblings we had been growing up. Back then, Daniel always acted like he knew better. Now, he listened. He asked questions. And for once, he respected my answers. He stirred his coffee and suddenly said, "You know what's messed up?" I smiled. What? I spent years thinking you were the weak one. I raised an eyebrow. And now? He looked at me. Now I know you were the strongest person in the family. He just hadn't figured it out yet. I laughed softly. Maybe. No, he said. Definitely. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Daniel looked down at his coffee. I keep thinking about that phone call. I knew exactly which one. The hospital? He nodded. I was such a jerk. You were. He winced. Thanks. You asked. He laughed. Then his smile disappeared. I wish I had shown up. I looked at him. So do I. He nodded slowly. But you can't change that night, I said. You can only change what you do from now on. I'm trying. I know. And strangely enough, I did know. Daniel never became my best friend. We didn't suddenly start talking every day. We didn't pretend the past never happened. But something changed. He stopped expecting me to fix his problems. He started respecting my boundaries. And whenever he needed advice, he asked instead of demanding. That was enough. Because real healing doesn't mean pretending someone never hurt you. It means deciding they don't get to hurt you the same way twice. Daniel had abandoned me when I needed him most. But in a weird way, that betrayal gave me something I never knew I needed. Independence. It forced me to discover that I could survive without the person I thought I couldn't live without. And when he finally came back years later, desperate and broken, I had a choice. I could punish him, or I could prove that his cruelty hadn't turned me into a cruel person. I chose the second, not because Daniel deserved it, because I deserved peace. A few weeks after that diner conversation, Daniel called me. Emily? Yeah? Can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you help me? I stared out of my office window. Outside, cars moved through the city, while my employees worked inside the company I had built from nothing. I thought about the hospital, the tiny apartment, the instant noodles, the nights I cried alone. Then I answered. Because I know what it feels like when nobody shows up. He went quiet. I continued. But helping you doesn't erase what happened. I know. And forgiveness doesn't mean I owe you anything. I know. I smiled. Then I guess you finally learned something. He laughed. Yeah, took me long enough. After we hung up, I sat there thinking about how different my life had become. 3 years earlier, Daniel had told me I was on my own. At the time, those words felt like a sentence, like my life was over. But they weren't the end. They were the beginning. Because I learned how to stand alone. I learned how to build something. I learned how to protect myself. And eventually, I learned the difference between forgiveness and trust. That was Daniel's karma. Not losing his business, not almost losing his house, not begging me for help. His real karma was realizing that the sister he thought was weak had become someone he could no longer control. And my revenge? I didn't destroy him. I simply built a life so strong that his approval stopped mattering. So if someone has ever abandoned you when you needed them most, remember this. Don't waste your life waiting for karma. Don't sit around hoping they'll regret it. Get up. Heal. Build. Grow. Because one day, they may come back looking for the person they left behind. And they might be shocked to discover that person no longer exists. I'm not angry at Daniel anymore. I'm not waiting for an apology. I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm simply grateful. Because the brother who once told me, "You're on your own," accidentally taught me the most important lesson of my life. Sometimes being left alone is exactly how you discover you were never helpless. You were just waiting to realize how strong you really were.